The legendary Rocks pirates was so powerful and dangerous they had to be erased from history, and outside of Roger are the most influential pirate groups in history, and it took the combined efforts of both Garp and Roger to take them down, which isn't surprising considering who's in the crew. Characters such as Big Mom, Kaido, and Whitebeard, three of whom ended up becoming emperors of the sea. A violent crew consisting of the most infamous pirates in history, all led by Rocks D. Xebec. This crew was cruel and vicious, but despite being one of the most powerful crews in existence, what happened to them and where are they now? Well, we're going to deep dive into that today, discussing the legacy of the Rocks pirates and how it's haunting the younger generation today. But first, for more videos like this, please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and click the bell icon to stay notified, as I would greatly appreciate it. So the first time this crew was ever mentioned was in chapter 957, where we learned about the legend of Rocks and his crew. But the earliest time we know that this crew was formed was at least 44 years ago, because that's when Kaido joined at the age of 15. The crew seems to have been a thing for a while now, so they're probably older than that. The crew started off as a get-rich-quick scheme with a bunch of pirates getting together in order to be on the come-up, and it originated on Hachinosu Island, aka Beehive Island, aka Pirate Island, aka Full of Lead Island. This place has a lot of names, but fun fact, this is the island where the Davy Back fight originated, so probably this was how Rocks ended up getting the crew together. This crew consisted of the most infamous pirates in history, such as Whitebeard, Kaido, Big Mom, Captain John, Ochoku, Silver Axe, Miss Buckingham, Stussy, Shiki, and of course, Rocks D. Xebec. This crew was nuts, full of hosses and powerhouses, but despite that, it was very dysfunctional, where a lot of the crew members couldn't stand each other. There was a lot of infighting and attempt to kill each other. There was a lot of big names and egos on this crew, to the point a lot of the members don't like talking about their time here, and even Whitebeard didn't like the idea of having multiple Conqueror users in one crew because of his time with Rocks D. Xebec. But despite all of these problems, one man was still able to haul them all in and keep them under control, and that was Rocks D. Xebec. Despite never seeing him in the actual story as of right now, this guy was an absolute legend and monster, considered to be the most dangerous rival of Roger, and that's a big thing considering his rivals consist of Shiki, Whitebeard, and Big Mom. Everyone in the crew would end up becoming some of the strongest characters in the entire story, but yet Rocks was able to keep all of these guys in check, which is a testament to his power and leadership. Now, Rocks was a certified villain who delved into the taboos of the world, which most likely include reading into the poneglyphs and the Void Century, but also directly fought against the world government, like the Revolutionary Army, considered to be like terrorists. Back in his day, he was top dog. He was the guy. He was him Eternity. He was him Duncan. He was the mayor of him Cincinnati. He had great ambitions where he wanted to become the king of the world. Despite not appearing in the story yet, we all know that he's a certified monster, where he probably has some of the best hockey in the entire series, as he had to have a great will in order to get all of these people in control. We don't know his bounty as of yet, but considering everything he's done and his legacy, it was pretty damn high. But one thing for certain is that it was less than Roger and Whitebeard, as it was stated no pirate in history has ever surpassed these two in bounty, unless that's Cap, as it ended up becoming Rocks was erased by history, so maybe his bounty was 2 as well. Let me know in the comments what you guys think Rocks' bounty was. But his ambitions got the best of him and led to his demise, as we all know by now, the Gods Valley incident, an event so big that the island and the event itself had to be erased from history. Now, this island was supposedly frequented and very liked by the Celestial Dragons, and so Rocks planned to attack them, but was thwarted by the combined efforts of the Marines led by Garp and Roger. Which is crazy because no one on this island likes the Celestial Dragons, but despite that, Roger decided to team up with Garp to take down Rocks. Unfortunately, not much is known about this incident besides this was the end of the Rocks pirates, supposedly the death of Rocks D. Xebec, and also this is where Kaido found his fruit, or more so Big Mom found Kaido's fruit and gave it to him. Now, it's interesting that Kaido's fruit was there because the Celestial Dragons seem to have an obsession with dragons, naming themselves after them. Even their symbol is called this hoof of the soaring dragon. and plus they asked Vegapunk to recreate the dragons for themselves. So obviously they had a deep connection with the species, so I wonder if this devil fruit was a national treasure on this island. Now, we don't actually know the specific reason why Rox and his crew decided to invade God's Valley, but there must have been something very important, as otherwise the government would have decided to erase the island off the face of the map, and the government only really do that in dire situations when people are getting a little too close to the truth and learning about the Void Century. Examples being Sabo and the Lucia Kingdom, where Sabo supposedly saw what Emu looks like. There's Ohara, where they discovered the name of the Great Kingdom, and currently now with Egghead and Vegapunk. So obviously someone here was close to the truth, most likely Rox, and they felt the need to erase him and the island. But this incident would spell the demise of Rox the Xebec, and his crew would disband, but they would all go out and make a name for themselves in the world and gain power throughout the years. And despite Rox being basically dead for about 40 years, his influence is felt to this day. But what did end up happening to the remnants of the Rox pirates? Well, like I said earlier, they ended up gaining more power, such as Shiki, alongside Roger and Whitebeard, ruled the seas, and I like to call this time period the Three Kings era. He ended up becoming one of Roger's greatest rivals and led the biggest fleet in the entire world at the time, having similar ambitions of his captain wanting to rule the world and always having plans. Unfortunately for him, after Roger turned himself in, he couldn't accept it and went to Marineford and fought Garp and Sengoku together, but ended up losing, went to Impel Down but broke free after cutting his legs, replacing them with his two beloved swords, and is currently in the sky doing crazy stuff. Go watch Strong World, it's a fantastic movie. Then there's Captain John, who's unfortunately dead, as we know from Thriller Bark where we saw his zombie. He was killed by his crew in a mutiny as he didn't want to share his treasure, and so he's unfortunately dead, but his legacy still continues as Buggy is currently searching for Captain John's treasure. During his time as a pirate, he collected a bunch of treasure and hoarded it somewhere safe, and Buggy's currently looking for it. The last we heard about that is that Luffy gave Buggy the map to Captain John's treasure, which was an armband that he found in Thriller Bark. We have yet to get an update. It's unclear if Buggy ever found that treasure, but knowing him, he probably got distracted with his whole warlord shenanigans, so he probably forgot about it, and I think that Captain John's treasure is going to be a heavy plot point in the future. Then there's Miss Buckingham Stussy, the original Stussy. She is currently with Marco as her son Weevil was captured by Green Bull. Alongside her son, Weevil was looking for the inheritance of Whitebeard, his lost treasure, but unfortunately for her, it doesn't exist, or at least so we're told by Marco. She is the self-proclaimed love interest of Whitebeard, and seeing how she looked back in the day, I don't blame the man, she was smoking hot. But that's not the only lie she tells herself, as she's supposedly a self-proclaimed scientist, as she was once a member of MADS, a group created by Vegapunk, Caesar Clown, Judge, and Queen. Well, supposedly a part of the group, as it stated she was a resident / freeloader. We don't know her full role in the group, but she was used as an experiment to clone herself, and we got Stussy, who's currently, well, was with CP0. The big theory is that Weevil is also an experimented clone of Whitebeard. Using the science of Vegapunk that she learned with MADS, she tried to recreate or make a clone of herself, but things did not go as planned. Again, she is with Marco, and they plan to look for Vegapunk to prove that Weevil is her son, which means that she's going to interact with the Straw Hats very soon. Then there's Ochoku. Unfortunately, we're not sure about his current whereabouts, but we do know after the fall of Rox, he ended up taking control of Hachinosu Island, and Blackbeard, using the Rocky Port incident, used that opportunity to attack him and take control of the island. This lets us know that he must have been very powerful and high-ranking within the crew for him to take over the island, and for Blackbeard, who had 2 devil fruits at the time, to use law in order to take him out. That is pretty impressive. And speaking of impressive, of course there is the legendary Whitebeard Edward Newgate, who's unfortunately dead, but man, this guy was a legend, considered to be one of the greatest pirates in history, having done everything a pirate could possibly do except get the One Piece because he wasn't interested in it. It actually wasn't until 2 years after the God's Valley incident, where Whitebeard was considered the world's strongest man, he ended up forming his own crew, becoming one of the 4 emperors of the sea, until he, alongside his crew and his allies, went against the Marines, now known as the Marineford War, where he met his untimely demise. Speaking of emperors, there's also Big Mom and Kaido, who also ended up becoming 2 emperors of the sea and some of the strongest characters in the entire series. Now, despite being in the same crew, unfortunately their relationship ended up souring over the years, and they used to fight like cat and dog until we got to Wano, where both of them found a common enemy and teamed up in order to defeat the worst generation. This alliance was short-lived but feared throughout the world, where many people thought that if they really got together, there's no one stopping them. But unfortunately, they both met their demise and were defeated by Luffy, Law, and Kid and sent to their doom inside of a magma chamber and exploded. They're most likely still alive, but definitely disfigured, and a lot of speculation is that they will return, most likely in Elbaf, for the final battle to claim the One Piece, as Big Mom still has a lot of plot lines revolving the giants of Elbaf, as she always wanted them a part of her family, and they know the truth of how Mother Caramel died, which I think Big Mom needs to know what really happened. And Blackbeard has kidnapped Pudding, so I'm pretty sure she'll want to get her back. And I can see Kaido meeting his end in Elbaf, which I think would be befitting for his character, as the entire culture of Elbaf is all about death and the way you die. So him dying in the country known as the Strongest, where they share the same beliefs as him, would be befitting for his character, I believe. Speaking of Kaido, I didn't mention Kurozumi Higurashi, who was the former user of Bon Clay's Devil Fruit, but that's because it was never made clear whether or not she was actually with the Rocks Pirates. It's highly speculated because she was exiled from Wano, and she seemed to have known Kaido for a long time and was the one who introduced him to the country in the first place. And when showcasing her abilities to Orochi, we saw the face of a younger Shiki and possibly a young Miss Bakkin as well. And we know in order to get their faces cloned, she must have touched them, so most likely she was with the crew. Unfortunately, Kaido killed her as she interfered with his fight. But as of right now, that's every member of the Rocks Pirates accounted for. Although they have been disbanded and Rocks is supposedly dead, his influence is still felt to his day, as the remnants of his crew are still terrorizing the seas to this day. And also, it seems as though he has influenced other pirates like Blackbeard, who seems to be following in his footsteps, taking over Hachinoso Island, the former home base of Rocks, has the same ambitions of becoming king of the world. He even gathered his crew in a similar manner of Rocks, just gaining random other self-made pirates and bringing them together in Impel Down after you raided it. He even named his ship Saber of Xebec, so obviously I think there's a connection between the two. He does feel like a second coming of Rocks, as he's terrorizing the world. He's into the ancient history as well, and is like the only evil D of this generation, similar to Rocks. He's currently fighting Law, but he's about to fight Garp soon as well, so we're about to learn a lot more information on Rocks and the Gods Valiants. But as for their future role in the story, I can see the Rocks Pirates kind of reforming a little bit. We saw a glimpse of it in Wano with Kaido and Big Mom getting back together, especially because we're getting a lot more information involving the Rocks Pirates as the story continues, and getting updates on former members and their influence on the world. But based on everything we've heard, it does sound like the infighting of the crew did lead to their own downfall. And when shit went south, they all probably just bailed and left Rocks for dead. Or the opposite, which could explain Kaido's low trust issues, and why he himself never talks about Rocks or the Gods Valiants. And no one in that crew or in that entire incident don't like talking about what happened, which is very telling. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments down below what you guys think the Rocks Pirates will do in the future and what really happened in Gods Valley. Otherwise, hope you guys have a good day and a good night. Stay safe. Have a good one. Peace.